Hello developers, welcome back to our React tutorial series. Today we are diving into a super cool topic that is on useEffect. It is a very important hook for function components that allows you to perform side effects. Its functionality is similar to the lifecycle methods in the class-based components. In previous videos, we have covered the lifecycle methods in class-based components. If you have missed that video, I suggest you to watch it first. It will help you to better understand the useEffect hook. I also wanted to take a quick moment to thank all of you who have shown incredible support for my ebook JavaScript, a comprehensive guide from ES 2015 to ES 2023. Your response has been truly amazing. If you haven't gotten your copy yet, this ebook is your one-stop shop to learn everything JavaScript from ES 2015 to the latest ES 2023 features. It's packed with explanations, examples, and best practices to help you master the language. This ebook is designed for all levels, so whether you are a beginner or an experienced developer, you will find value in it. So why wait? Grab your copy today from the link in the video description, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more JavaScript content. Now let's get started. Now, what is useEffect in React? The useEffect React hook allows developers to declaratively specify the side effects that should happen in response to changes in state or props, which makes it easier to understand and manage the behavior of the application. Its functionality is similar to the lifecycle methods in class-based components. For example, in previous video, we have seen this counter class component. It is a class-based component, and in this example, we have seen lifecycle methods like componentDidMount, componentDidUpdate, and componentWillUnmount methods. Using useEffect, we can replicate these lifecycle methods in function components. So let's see how we can use this. So in the counter component, it is a function based component, and here we have count state, and we have displayed it right here, and on click this button it increments the count. Let's remove these buttons. We have added these buttons in previous videos to explain event handling, and now let's remove this also. Next, in the app.jsx, here we have imported the counter class component. Let's remove this and import from the components directory counter component. And next, right here, let's add counter component tag. Now let's go back to browser, refresh. Here we have display button, and on click this button it shows the counter component, and on click hide it hides the counter component. Now let's go back to editor and let's see how we can use useEffect. Now let's close this app component, and now in this counter component, first let's import useEffect. Next we can call this useEffect inside the function component right here. In this useEffect function, we can pass two arguments. First, a callback function, and the second is an optional array. We will see this array argument in a moment. First, let's talk about the callback function. Now inside this callback function, let's console log this count. So console log count and concat count. Now let's go back to browser. Let's open the inspect tool and console. Now on display this count, immediately we get count 0, and on increment this count, we can see a new count value in the console log. Increment again, and here is count 2. This useEffect function is called every time there is change in the state or prop value. It is equivalent to the componentDidUpdate method in the class component, this one, that we have already seen in previous video on lifecycle methods in class-based components. Let's see one more example. Let's say here we have a input field. So input type text. We want a two-way data binding. So let's create a new state. So here let's say const, let's say input value, and set input value is equal to use state, and initially its value is empty string. Now let's bind this input value variable with this input field. So value is equal to, in curly braces, input value. Next, on change, let's call arrow function, and it is going to accept event. Next, we're going to call this set input value, and in this set input value we will pass event.target.value like this. Now let's go back to browser, refresh, display component, and here we get count 0. Now on increment count we get the console log, and if I type anything in this input field, and then also we get count in the console log. Now if we increment the count value or type anything in this input field, we get the same console log from the useEffect function. However, since we have logged count value, it should only execute when the count value changes, not when the input field value changes. And this is where the second argument comes in, that is an optional array, the array of dependency. Here we can pass this count variable, and now the useEffect function will only execute when the value of count changes. Let's see this in the browser, refresh, display count, we increment the count, here we get the console log, count values, and if I type anything in this input field, we will not see any console log. This is very useful for optimizing performance by skipping effects when unnecessary. We can include more variables in this dependency array. For instance, we can add input value, and now this useEffect function will be executed every time there is any change in count or input value. Let's see. So refresh, display component, increment count. Here we get the count 1 and count 2. Similarly, type anything in the input field. Here we are getting count 2 in the console. Right now, this piece of code will be executed every time there is change in count and input value. But if we want to run different code for input value, then we can call a useEffect again. Let's duplicate this and remove this input value from this useEffect, and let's remove this count from this useEffect. Next, in this console log, let's display input value. Now let's go back to browser, refresh, display component. Now in increment we get count in the console, and on type anything in the input field. Now in the console we are getting log for input value. Now let's remove this. Now when the component is rendered in the DOM, it immediately calls this useEffect, and when the value of this count changes, it calls this useEffect again. It replicates the behavior of componentDidUpdate and componentDidMount. Now what if we pass empty array in the second argument? So let's duplicate this and let's remove this console log, and let's pass an empty array. Now this useEffect will replicate the behavior of componentDidMount. This tells the React that the hook does not have any dependency, so it will only be executed once when the component is initially rendered. Let's see. So first let's console log component is mounted. Now let's go back to browser, refresh. Right now you can see we do not have any console log. Let's display the count, and immediately we get component is mounted. Now let's clear this. Now if we increment the count value or change anything in this input field, then we are not getting any console log from this useEffect. In the class component lifecycle, we have used this componentDidMount to change the document title. This method is triggered when the component is initially rendered and it changes the document title. And whenever the count value changes, the componentDidMount method is triggered and it updates the document title with the new count values. In this example, we are executing this same code twice in the componentDidUpdate and componentDidMount right here. In contrast, the useEffect hook function replicates the behavior of both componentDidMount and componentDidUpdate lifecycle methods. So let's see this. So in this useEffect function, let's update the document title. So let's remove this console log. Let's say document.title is equal to count and count. Let's go back to browser, refresh, and once a component is mounted on the DOM, the useEffect hook is immediately executed, updating the document title. Since this useEffect depends on count, so whenever the value of count changes, it triggers the useEffect again and updates the document title with new count value. Let's see, +1, and in the document title you can see count is 1, +1 again. Now document title is count 2. Next, now when the component is removed from the DOM, let's click this hide button. Here we are still getting document title count 2, but we want to update the document title with its original title. In class component lifecycle, we have used componentWillUnmount method to accomplish this. This method is executed just before the component is unmounted or removed from the DOM. In the useEffect hook, we can achieve the same behavior as componentWillUnmount by returning a function from the hook itself. So here let's return a callback function. Now this method will be executed before component is unmounted, and it can be used for performing any unnecessary cleanup task such as cancelling network requests or removing event listeners. So here, to update the document title with the original title when component is removed from the DOM, we first need to save the original document title in another variable. So here let's say const original title is equal to document.title, and then in the cleanup function, let's comment this as cleanup function. Now in this cleanup function, we can change document.title is equal to original title, this one. This will ensure that document title is restored to its original value when component is unmounted. Let's see. So refresh. Now here we have document title with plus React, display the component. Now we have document title count 0. Now increment count. Now here we have count 3. Now let's hide this counter component, and immediately its title is updated with the original title with plus React. In the class based component, we have seen this log mouse position example. Let's see this example in function component also. So we want to log the mouse position. So to do that, so first we want to add event listener window.add event listener, and then we will say mouse over event listener, and next we will call function log mouse position. Since this useEffect depends on count value and it will run again and again on every change in count, so it will try to bind this event listener again and again. However, once the event listener is added, there is no need to add this event listener again and again. So instead of adding this event listener in this useEffect, let's cut this from here. We will add this right here in this useEffect, where its dependency array is empty. This empty array indicates that it does not depend on any value and it should only be run once when the component is mounted. Now let's create this log mouse position function log mouse position, and it is going to accept a event. Next, let's console log a object where the x is event dot client x and y is event dot client y. Now let's see this in the browser. Refresh, display the component. Here we are getting console log undefined. Let's see what was the mistake. Here C is in small letter. Now let's go back to browser, refresh again, display the component. Now on mouse over, we are getting mouse position logs in the console. Now let's hide this component and clear this console log. Now on mouse hover, we are still getting mouse position log in the console and we do not want that. So to remove the mouse position log after hiding the component, we need to remove event listener when the component is removed from the DOM. We can do that by returning a cleanup function that removes the event listener. So let's return a cleanup function. Now let's copy this and paste it right here, and here we will say window.remove event listener. This way, when the component is initially rendered in the DOM, the event listener is added. On mouse hover, it logs the mouse position in the console. When the component is removed from the DOM, this cleanup function removes this event listener. Let's see this in the browser. Refresh, display the component. Here we are getting mouse position in the console. Let's hide this component and clear this. Now we are not getting any mouse position log in the console. And there you have it. We have reached the end of our useEffect tutorial. I hope you found this video helpful in understanding how useEffect works in React. If you did, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more easy to follow React tutorials. Thanks for watching. Happy coding.